Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there. This is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to The Jay Franze Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to The Jay Franze Show. A behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franze.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franze, and if you are new here, this is where we take a deep dive into the entertainment industry to provide you with valuable insights and entertaining stories. This week, we get to talk with a singer, songwriter, and recording artist. We get to talk with Chad Wilson. We'll talk about how he got his start in songwriting, what it's like to be an award-winning artist, and we'll take a deep dive into his hit single, The Devil. Now, I moved to Nashville 25 plus years ago, and I've been working in the industry ever since. And Chad was one of the first artists I had a chance to work with. So I'm excited today to talk to him and see how his career has grown since then. So if you'd like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jfranze.com. Now let's get started. Chad, sir, how are you?
Jay, how you doing, buddy?
You know what? I am doing fabulous, sir. It's been a little while. Since we've last spoke, you seem to have been winning some awards. What's it like to be an award winner?
It's incredible, man. To be recognized for anything is special. To be recognized for back-to-back years, me and my brother were best duo or group of the year. And then, of course, I left one out on my own. And this past year, I won the 2022 JMA Country Male Vocalist of the Year. That was unbelievable.
That's awesome. Tell me how it felt.
You know, I see video now of me walking up and giving a speech, and I don't even remember that. I was so nervous when they called my name. It was very special. I had a lot of people there that night, so it was a very special moment.
That's pretty cool. Well, let's just take a quick step back. I've met you songwriting, and we've worked in the studio together quite a bit. When was it that you knew you wanted to be a songwriter?
Well, our story goes back to, our roots are in gospel music. We grew up with, our parents were singers. Mom played the piano. That's where I learned how to play the piano. And our grandparents were pretty well known, the Johnson Quartet. So anytime there was a singing, which was every week, 2 or 3 times a week, or in church, we were there every time the doors were open. But I didn't write my first song until I was 15 years old. What most guys 15 years old would write a song about was about a girl that broke my heart. But I knew early on I wanted to be a writer. For 2 years we lived in Missouri. I went to a small school in Missouri. In the 3rd grade, I entered a school-wide writing competition, and I ended up winning it. And I knew then that I just love writing. I love words, I didn't put that in music together until I was 15. I moved to Nashville, and I had written probably over 1,000 songs and spent many a nights, burning the pavement before I was able to get that first good one. But when you get that first good one, it's all worth it,
Can you tell me what that process is like for you?
Yeah, it's different every time with different people. I write a lot I get a lot of friends that I love writing with, and everybody's different. This past year, I was able to write with my hero several times. A guy named Anthony Smith, written lots of hits. I always thought Anthony was one of the best songwriters there is. So getting to write with him was special, but his writing style is so unique. I particularly write toward a hook, what we call a hook, and that's typically the name of the song is what the song's about. And that's 90% of the time, that's how I write music. But with Anthony, the day we wrote with him, the way he does it is he writes one line and he lets the next line be dictated by that line. So you sort of don't know where you're going with it. And it's such a different style for me, but to watch it come together is pretty crazy. And then there's been times I've had songs come to me in the middle of the night. I'd wake up from a dead sleep, Alabama Will, for instance, got up in the middle of the night, went into the writing room, wrote it down word for word, or most of it, went back to bed. Stuff like that, just, I don't even think that's me. Sometimes I feel like I'm a channel, It's just got to come out. But every situation is different, I think chemistry is number one thing. If you have good chemistry with who you're writing with, then it's easy to write.
Let's step back for a minute, because what you just said is kind of different to me. I've never heard anybody do one line is dictated by the previous line. So did that present any challenges to you?
Oh, tremendously. Yes. Major challenges. I felt so insignificant that day. I'm like, I can't contribute to this. I don't even know how to do this, but it ended up being a great song. Matter of fact, it's a song that we recorded on the record. But, I guess everybody sort of has their way of doing it. I learned a lot from Chris Rowe. My style of writing, Chris Rowe was very instrumental in helping me develop who I eventually came to be as a writer. Blue Foley taught me a lot. But I learned a lot from Anthony too, and what I learned from Anthony is sometimes it's better just to not have a direction and let a collective thoughts get you to where you need to go. That can be challenging.
You say songs are channeled. Sometimes you get up and you feel that energy and you go into a room and you write it all down. When you're sitting down to write a song versus being woken up in the middle of the night, what inspires you to do so?
Gosh, I love life. I love living. I love people. So being that some of my best friends are songwriters, I get to hang out with my best friends and write music. So it don't take much to get me inspired to write music. That's what I love to do. But, I recently had a guy come to me right after Christmas, or maybe it was right before Christmas or after Christmas. I can't remember. Just, stranger just found me out of the blue, a guy wanting to cut a record and needing help writing it. He's never recorded it before, never written a song before. So that was a challenge in itself, because I've never been a good teacher. I don't have the patience to be a teacher. So the challenge that I had with that particular situation is, how do I explain all this to somebody that's never written before, that wants to write on a certain level? And those challenges that presented was my inspiration for that, because, we're men. Us manly men, when we have these challenges, we like to prove to ourselves that we can overcome them. I think we did quite well. We're almost done with that record, by the way, for him, and he's going to be recording it pretty soon. I couldn't be more excited about it.
That's awesome. How much input have you had on his record?
A lot. I've probably written half of it at least, maybe. But that's with him too, though. We've been writing for a couple months now, so I don't know what his final track listing is going to be, but I know there's at least 3, 4, maybe 5 songs on it that I've written. A couple of them are I feel really good about.
And what do you hope the listeners take away from it?
I didn't realize this until the second time that we had a meeting, when we met for the second time, that it was a gospel record that he wanted to write. Being that my roots are in gospel, that wasn't a stretch for me. But I've never been asked to do that before. So I was excited, but I was also, I didn't know if I was up to it. I've only written 1 or 2 gospel songs in the past, so I didn't know how I'd go about that. But it all finds its way somehow or another. And like I said, we got a couple of great songs out of it, I think.
Well, let's talk about your album for a minute. Tell me about your upcoming release.
Yeah. It's called This Side of a Song. We've been working on it now for a lot longer than what you're supposed to be working on a record. We've recorded in many studios, a couple of different producers. And all this was not by choice, obviously, but by circumstance. But I finally finished recording the vocals and everything on it just this past week. We got a few things to do before it gets ready to go out to the public, but the album's called This Side of a Song, and that's the title track. The song itself, This Side of a Song, is a song about a career in music from sort of what we see as an entertainer, as an artist, playing little clubs and in particular, it's about a guy playing the same bar every weekend. Now he gets to see, well, Jeannie's, heartbreaking. She's back there crying because what's her name left her, and Charlie's over here causing trouble. Just different situations and scenarios that we see when we're up there that we don't necessarily get to talk about a lot. So it's really, really special to me because I've lived that song a lot. But what I'm most excited about on this record is just some of the co-writers that I get to share my name beside. Eric Dillon, hit songwriter. Dan Smalley, one of the best artists in Nashville, in my opinion. My buddy Lance Dubrow from Louisiana. He's got a couple of songs on there with me. Anthony Smith. Gosh, there's many more. Some of these songs come out of some of these songwriter retreats that I'm so fortunate to be asked to go on a lot. In particular, a couple of years ago, I was on one in Montana, Whitefish, Montana, and wrote a handful of songs with Barrett Baber, Trick Savage, some other Grammy-nominated songwriters. And I think all three of those songs that I wrote on that retreat made this record.
So did you finish all of the songwriting before you started assembling the process?
We started with 10 songs that we thought was going to make a great record. I didn't write this side of a song until about 6 months ago. So we had no idea that was even going to be the title track until it was written, and it turned out better than we expected. So we just decided to use it. But the 10 songs that we started with and the 12 that we ended up with, completely different. Maybe 4 or 5 of them is the same.
So how does that happen? I mean, obviously you're the songwriter, you're putting it together. So during the production process, who's producing it?
I'm co-producing it. Lie Like You Love Me was the first single off this record, but that came out a year ago. And the reason that I didn't finish that song there is because COVID had hit. My producer at the time, a friend of mine, Aaron Rodgers, got sick with COVID. It kept him out of it so long that he ended up having to close the studio down. Because he was in hospital for several months.
Wow.
Obviously, that sort of put a halt on everything that we had going. So, and Aaron's still a big part of it, but at one point we just decided that in order to move forward, it might be, best if he's just on a maybe consultation kind of role as opposed to being the producer. So I went to Eric Torres after that, and Eric Torres helped produce The Devil. And once again, Eric's got #1's accreditation, Jimmy Allen, several other people. So watching him work on my music was pretty special. I finished the record up at Red 3. Producer Nick Sturms is co-producing probably 6 or 8 tracks with me. And then the other 2 or 3 songs were cut for the Wilson Brothers record that never got released at Fame Studios down in Muscle Shoals.
So you're the glue, you're the person, the co-producer that's tying this all together. I mean, even from the songwriting, is it your responsibility to pick out the musicians that play on the album?
It is.
So what was that process like for you?
To me, that wasn't really a challenge. I know so many, I've worked with so many. And each producer that helps me, they have their own group of people as well. I brought in Gabe Baker on The Devil to do cello, and he's a phenomenal artist himself. I met Gabe at a writing retreat maybe 2 years ago and instantly knew that I had to have that guy in my life. He's just a true blessing to be a friend. But I brought him in to do cello on The Devil. I had my band come in and do the first 3 or 4 tracks, Harder Than It Has to Be. I think there's a couple more on there that I had my own band do. But if I don't know somebody personally, then I know somebody that does. And unfortunately for me, my bass player at the time, AD, knew of the guy that led the choir. And when I reached out to him needing a choir, he knew exactly who to call. And did they not kill that or what? It was a good girl.
You mentioned something there that we talk about a little bit, and that's you brought your band in. Most people in Nashville specifically, they separate the live musicians from the studio musicians. So did you purposely bring your band in with the intent to bring them into the studio?
No, I brought them in because they're just that talented. I've been fortunate to work with some great musicians, and my last band was no different. COVID had hit. Everybody needed work. Our whole schedule got canceled that March of 2020. None of us knew where we was going to be tomorrow, what was going to be doing. So any opportunity I got to bring my guys in and put money in their pocket, obviously, and they helped me out tremendously as well. But they were that talented, and they still friends with everybody. But COVID, sort of ended the band stuff. It's just now starting to get back up. I didn't tour with a band this past year at all.
Wow. So
they went on now to get roles in bigger, better artist bands. I say better, but bigger artists.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us who some of those musicians were?
Raymond on the drums, Josh Raymond. He's a superstar. He's out with maybe Kylie Morgan right now, or maybe somebody in that camp. But Josh Raymond is a beast. He's from Boston. All these are young cats too. Darius A.D. Stewart, he was the bass player. He's now playing with another great artist. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, who was on guitar and helped produce 3 or 4 tracks that we cut with a band. Phenomenal guitar player. I mean, I think he's got a Grammy because of that. He's got a Grammy Award. Very talented guys. And Jonathan Smith on piano, Virginia. We call him Preacher Man. You can find him playing with at the Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar. He brings that soul to it. And, I'm just trying to carve out my little place in country music. Ain't nothing wrong with a little soul. And so I bring a little soul to it. But I get that so easily with the help of these guys who are so talented.
What's the difference for you when you're recording in Nashville versus, say, Alabama?
I think who you work for or who you're working with is, to me, the biggest difference. But as far as being behind a microphone, I mean, it's something to be standing on behind the microphone at Fame Studios, looking out over the big room, knowing that so much magic has taken place in this place. And you just feel this feeling that just runs through your body, and you're so grateful to be there. And then I got to record at Blackbird Studios,
John McBride.
Yep. And of course, I worked with Chris a lot at the Love Shack for a while. So every studio has its own vibe, its own what it puts off. So I just try to absorb all that and try to at least give it back just as much, if not more. That's, to me, would be the answer to that question. What's different would be the character of the studio, the vibe it gives off.
Yeah, no, I've worked in, countless studios over the past 30 years, and I grew up in the Northeast, so Boston, New York. Had a chance to do some work down in Florida, but I've never had a chance to record in Alabama or even Memphis or any of those iconic studios. But I have spent the majority of my time in Nashville. And Nashville has a very strict way of doing things. They operate with the union. Their studios are open standard hours. You go in there and everything is done on a clock. And when I was up in New York, it was the exact opposite. We didn't even go in the studio till 10 o'clock at night. And it was more of being a relaxed setting. There was no structure to it. So I was just wondering where on the scale a place like Alabama or Memphis would fit into that.
Well, both of your scenarios I went through on this record. The recording that we did at Fame was a scheduled 3 days. We had the studio at certain times from the morning to the afternoon or evening or whatever the times were, and we had a strict schedule that we had to stick to. But when I cut the songs that I used my band on and with Aaron producing, we didn't start until 10, 11 o'clock at night. We'd record all night long. So there was many nights we didn't go to sleep.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, I know from the producer and engineer side of the world, the structure is fantastic. We go in, we set up at a certain time, we record, we press the big red button at a particular time of the day, and everything is done in fashion. However, on the creative side, and I'd like you to shine more light on it, it has to feel better to take your time and to have the vibe, that relaxed environment.
It's very important to be relaxed. I think, yes, Nashville is very structured, and I never let that take away the creativity. Or in my case, what I would do is I would make sure that me and the producer we had all of our creative moments before the clock started. Pre-production kind of stuff. Me and Chris would get in there and would hammer things out and talk about what we hear here and hear there, and man, Chris he's just such a good guy, he's going on to work now with Taylor Swift. So he's the best of the best. And to learn from him how a studio is supposed to operate was, again, I'm very lucky and very blessed that I got to do all that work under Chris to see how he worked. Every studio that I went in after that structure that was there, it just sort of, it becomes commonplace. It's not out of the ordinary. But if you do the pre-production, don't get me wrong, freedom to just have a group come in and just have a day in the studio with everybody just able to do what they want to do. And I can't say that I've ever been a part of something like that. I think of Kings of Leon. That comes to mind when I think about that and how they went and rented a place for a month or so and set up shop and recorded that whole record right there. We've always talked about doing that, my brother and I. Just going and renting a place and setting the studio up and just recording the whole record, just the way we want it, no time limits or nothing like that. So I would imagine there's a lot of freedom in that. To somebody who's been used to working on deadlines and structure, that could probably be a little anxiety, I would imagine. But I couldn't really speak to the freedom that presents. I've never really done that before.
So in your case, when you're doing pre-production beforehand like that, what's that process like for you?
So the guys in my band, for instance, when I brought them in, we have already been playing some of the songs live in front of people. So there wasn't really much creativity we had to add to some, but then there was one or two where they never even heard before. It was new to them, it was new to me. So we'll just take a day and we'll just sit there and work it out. If something sounds good, I'll tell them. And if something don't sound good, I'll tell them.
And how does that go over?
Sometimes not so good. Nobody likes me telling them what to do. So,
all right, sir. Well, I don't want to end our conversation without taking a deeper dive into The Devil. The Devil it's an emotional song. It seems to have a lot of ups, downs, and it has more of a message that you seem to try to convey. Can you tell me how that song was written?
Sometimes the reason you write a song and what that song stands for when it's done can be two different things. That song, me and Isaac Moore from the Wilson Brothers Band started writing that song. He was hanging out at the studio one day. I had just gone, or I was in the process of a divorce. I think the divorce was final. But, here we are, the Wilson Brothers, we're traveling all over the country doing radio tours and number one. And I'm recently divorced. I haven't even had time to grieve yet. And it was tough. It was real tough because you got to think, my dream has always been to do what we were out there doing. So my soul was full when it comes to that. But at the same time, I was so empty because, divorce is tough. If you've never experienced divorce, I wouldn't wish it on nobody, but divorce can be very tough. And so I was so twisted. And the devil had a lot of opportunities to come in and to make bad decisions and stuff like that. So I knew that I was vulnerable. And, we wrote the song based on that, don't come around here no more, devil. I mean, it's in those tough times that, I don't know, you got to believe in something, because we can't do some of this on our own. That's how the song come about. But that was a couple of years ago when we wrote it. So when it comes time to record it, I had met a movie producer through Kyle Sailors. He introduced me to a guy named Kyle Smithson. Kyle Smithson,
He produced the video for you.
he did. He was the director and producer of the video. He has a story that can change a lot of people's lives, and has. He was an addict, living in L.A. This is not me saying this, but he would say that he was a trust fund baby type. Never had a lot of responsibility. So, you combine all those elements together. It's easy to see how the devil can grab somebody and pull them down and have them running in the wrong direction of their morals, I guess you could say. But he overcome all those challenges. And then when he heard the devil for the first time, he said it spoke to him. So that's the mission of that song began the first day we started shooting the video for it. We knew that what the video was going to be about. The song touched Kyle, and we worked it out. And he, like I say, he put the whole video together. We timed it on purpose, and we did a real big community drive to bring awareness to suicide. To a lot of people in those vulnerable moments when a lot of things is going wrong, it's easy to think about, well, wouldn't it be better if this happened? So we got to meet people and talk stories of suicide and the people who was near, at that point of pulling the trigger and change their mind, or something happened and they're still here. So that's what the song means today. When I think of the devil, I think of, suicide awareness. But when we wrote the song, it was written for those dark moments that we're experiencing. So that's the evolution of a song, I guess you could say.
So the video conveys that message, and it shows somebody who's contemplating suicide. Is that a message that you and Kyle were trying to achieve in the video itself?
Absolutely, yeah. The video starts out, he had lost a friend as a war veteran. And they were at the graveyard burying his friend, and he just couldn't handle it. His character couldn't handle it. So he turned to drinking, and that led to other things going wrong. And finally, when you just get down to the bottom and you just quit falling, but it's on your way down to the bottom that you're most vulnerable. He's had a lot of experience with his family, with suicide and friends. So it was very important to him. It was very important to me as well. First video that we did as Wilson Brothers was a video for It All Looks Good From Here, which debuted at #1. But the assistant director to that film was a good friend of ours. And not long after that, she decided to move forward with that. And that was tough on us all. We all had to deal with that for a little while. So I think of her a lot when I think of the devil. But yes, that's the message that we wanted to get out, because we feel like a lot of people need to hear that message. A lot of people that have to deal with suicide.
No, I see that. Matter of fact, Nashville just lost somebody to suicide recently. It's a hard hit to all of us, and I've seen others struggle with it. So it's not a subject that I take lightly. So when you're working with such a serious matter in the video, and not to take away from the song itself, but the video shows a lot of imagery in the video, whether it be the scene at the cemetery you were talking about, or it could be the moment of contemplating suicide, and then just the special effects. So whose idea was it for the special effects, and how did you go about generating those?
Well, Kyle Smithson, I mentioned to him that I wanted a piano on fire. Could we do it? And did he do it? He did it, He had a baby grand piano. A lot of us had to carry this thing through the woods onto a bridge. He made it happen. I put it that way. But Uncle Conley Wilson out of Oklahoma was a special effects supervisor for the video. And meeting him was like meeting your long lost cousin that you hadn't seen in years. He just a down to earth guy. Had such a great time, but he was so good. He was so good with that fire that he had that fire on that piano. And when we got done, that piano never looked like it had been touched with a flame. It was still just as good as it was when we started.
That's funny.
But most of the video was Kyle Smithson. I try not to I try not to get in the way of somebody creative. When somebody is good at what they do and they know what they want to do, then I think that's times I like to just take a step back and let that happen. And this video is one of them. I don't know if I had a lot of input on the video other than I just wanted the interpretation of what the song was saying to be revealed. Kyle pretty much did what he does, and he did it so well.
Well, the video is very good, and he did a great job. Let's take a step back, though, to the song. You mentioned earlier about the choir that came in and sang at the end, which is my wife's favorite part of the song, by the way. But let's talk about the other musicians. Who laid down the foundation for you?
Taj London is the leader of the choir. I had met Miss Judy, who owns the HoriPro Studios. I had just met her a few months before we cut the devil. And she showed me her studio. And it's a historic studio right there on Music Row.
Yep.
I think Alabama's cut there, Kenny Chesney, a lot of big names have recorded there. But, her husband had passed away within the last couple of years. And she didn't want the studio just to be forgotten about, because her and her husband still owned it. And so she was on an initiative to get that studio back, to where it had its name and people recording there, and I wanted to help. So when this opportunity came up to record this choir, immediately I wanted to record it at the HoriPro Studios. So my bass player introduced me to Taj London. He brought the choir in, and they got to record it right there at the studio. And I told you I brought in Gabe Baker for the cello. And the main track was one of the tracks we cut down in muscle shows. So you got Jay Cott on the bass. You got Peter Keys playing the keys. Of course, my brother is on the track, and Eric Torres, who did the final production, is on there doing backups and some guitar work, maybe a few other things. But
let's get to the basics. So let's get a little geeky on it a little bit. So when you recorded the basic tracks for the song, how many people recorded at one time?
I think the most we had at one time would be 4. I think at Fame, it was 4. You got drums, bass, guitar, and either piano. Yeah. And then me, we always do a scratch. So I play the acoustic and do a scratch for every track. So at the most we had at one time would be 5 of us, including me. And then we do all the overdubs separately. We'll save a day for that. We'll have fixes that we messed up. We'll come in and we'll fix them. And anybody else that plays it. A lot of people in Nashville these days play multi-instruments. So it's easy to just have a guy pull out a harmonica or a fiddle while he's there putting the bass guitar down or something, But that comes later. But yeah, about 4 or 5 is the most we record at one time.
So if you have 4 or 5 people recording at one time, does that help you convey the mood that you're trying to capture?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of my songs I write from an emotional perspective. My goal was to be a voice for the audience who otherwise might not have a voice. A lot of people experience the same things that I experience in my life, but they might not have no way to express that or emote that. And if I don't do a good job at expressing that on the front end of it, then it won't be that way on the back end of it. So it's very important to do that.
No, and it makes sense. And in a song like this, where you're trying to create such emotion and you're trying to convey a feeling, what are you hoping that the listener takes away at the end of it all?
Well, I guess that would be song by song, case by case basis, but particularly of the devil. There's a saying at the end of that Kyle put on there. I think it says, if we can save just one life, then everything that we've done is worth it. So we all have ups and downs in life. We all make mistakes. We all have to get back up and go again. The thing about a bad day is that we've overcome every one of them. None of them have stopped us yet. I guess a message of hope, just to know that there's people out there that feel a certain way. Let them know that they're not alone. I don't care who you are, where you come from, you feel all those emotions as well. And some people don't realize that. Some, they feel like they're all alone. So if we can touch those people, make them feel like they're like we feel, but it's going to be okay, then, that's the most important thing I think we're trying to put out for that.
I know the last few years have been rough, but have you had a chance to play this song live yet?
Just acoustically. I get a request for it everywhere I go. So I always play it acoustically, but I have not yet played it with a full band. And I'm looking forward to the day I can make that happen.
The song is so emotional. Do you have any troubles playing it live?
I haven't yet, but I won't say that won't happen, because I wrote a song about my two daughters. The song was called "It's Okay to Cry." I don't play it out much, but every now and then some of my, true fans request something like that, something off, and every now and then a song to get me, and it's okay.
I can imagine in a song like this where if you do get to perform it with a band and even with the choir, the moment that choir kicks in, that particular point in the song, it could probably be a tough one to try to finish from that point on.
Yeah. And there's that potential. There's also potential that it could be glorious, I think when the choir kicks in, I think what would be so hard for me to do is maybe not so much the words and the emotions of the song, but just how good the choir sounds. That might be the reason that I might forget a word or two, because all those parts are carefully crafted, and I'm so proud of them. And to hear them live for the first time is going to be pretty spectacular. So if I forget a word, it would probably be because of that.
How much feedback on the song have you had so far?
Tremendous amount. Just on YouTube alone, I've had people just sharing their life, strangers. That's what music does. It brings people together. And once again, makes people, if you do it right, you portray that message right, then those people that don't have to feel alone anymore. And just reading the comments on The Devil on YouTube, it's people sharing some of the most intimate, personal stories. They feel that comfortable doing that, listening to this song. So my hope is that even help with their healing, So
has anybody reached out to you directly?
Yes, quite a few. I had a young lady that had already attempted suicide twice. And she had made her mind up to do it again. This time she had it planned out, knew what she was going to do. And she had a new baby. Her baby was less than a year old. But the song spoke to her in a way that it made her think about that baby more than herself for the first time. She ended up not even attempting it. And I spent quite a bit of time with her, learning her story. And that's just one example. I've had several people that reached out to me, that touched me, made me a better person, because listening to them and what they went through. One of those guys I became real good friends with. A guy reached out to me, and his story is one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard. I mean, it has to do with so many things that you can't even imagine. And he had a bullet in his gun, and his gun was cocked, and he had the gun to his head, and he pulled the trigger. But the gun didn't fire, it misfired. He felt something in that moment when that bullet didn't go off, that he decided that he wasn't going to do it. He knew then that he was here for a purpose. And when people come to me and tell me their stories about stuff like that, I can't imagine how dark of a place you have to be in to want to end your life, because I love life. I love living. But you realize that something that might be significant to you, to me, to somebody else might not be so significant. And I think we all could do a better job at communicating. The more that technology advances, the less we have personal communication with each other. And I think that has a lot to do with it. So just talking to somebody is good. But man, they touch my life. They tell me how much my song has meant to them, but I don't think they know that they're the blessing, because what they do to me, that's what gets me through.
No, that's awesome. I can only imagine how it would feel, especially that it's your song, something that came from you and you're helping other people. Before we call it a night here, we do something called Unsung Heroes. Is there anybody that's worked for you or helped you behind the scenes that you might want to shine some spotlight on?
I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to a lot of people if I did just name one or two names, because there's so many. I rely on the support of so many. So Brenda Willis, my old manager, she was such a blessing to me. And, some of the people that support me, whether it be emotionally or some of them, monetarily. But I think what really shined is, I've been down this year. I got real sick at Christmas. And I've never had been as sick as I was. I've never had to cancel a show due to sickness. And I had to cancel a whole month of shows. And some of those days where I was down, what kept me going is the people that still believe in me, some of the fans that you would never anticipate doing this for you. But, I'd get stuff delivered to my house, groceries, because people knew that they knew that I was sick and I was struggling. And, if anything I've ever done in my life was done right, some of the people that I call friends is that one right thing, because I've got a lot of them. So those are the unsung heroes to me.
That's great. Any advice for people who are up and coming songwriters?
Yeah. Don't do it. No, that's a joke. I told Caitlin Croker that. Caitlin Croker, she just got a record deal here recently, but 17 years old, she moved to town, and she's a phenomenal singer. I love working with her. I've been working with her now for over a year. But first thing she asked me was, what advice would I have to give her? And I'm like, I think you should just quit right now. And we've always laughed at that. So, but I think the biggest piece of advice I could give anybody, you just got to be a good person. Being a good person will take you further in life than most anything else will.
What's next for Chad Wilson?
Oh, we got this record done, so getting it out is going to be the biggest thing. Starting to get a lot of dates coming in for this year, and I'm excited about that. But I think I'm most excited about is just found out maybe 30 minutes before we started live here tonight that an artist that I wrote with this past year a few times, Warren Garrett, we wrote a song called Frame, and he just released it maybe a month or two ago. Just found out today, just 30 minutes ago before we started, that song is a semifinalist for the American Songwriter Song of the Year Award. So I'm excited about that. I ain't even talked to him yet, So I plan on calling him when we get done, and just getting this record out. Jay, I put so much into it. I've put my heart, I put my soul, I put everything that I've got into this, and I feel so good about it.
Well, we are excited to hear it. Chad, sir, do you have any final words you'd like to leave us with?
Well, Jay, I sure appreciate you having me on the show today. And I appreciate the support you give of the devil and of my career. We've been friends for a while. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you can, go check the devil out. The video's out on YouTube at Chad Wilson Music, and stay tuned for the whole album coming pretty soon.
No, that was awesome. I loved hearing about Chad's journey through songwriting and how his music has made a difference to so many. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and help me give a big thanks to Chad for joining us this week and sharing his stories. And thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can do just that and find links to everything mentioned in today's episode, including an uncut and uncensored live recording, over at jfranze.com/episode 5. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franze Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranze.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.